Hi, I'm Talissa.
And I'm Rachel, and this is Transatlantic Crime, a true crime podcast that covers stories from each side of the pond. Every week, we will both cover a separate story with a running theme.
Disclaimer, this podcast will contain swearing and details that some people may find offensive. If you are of a sensitive disposition, listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Transatlantic
Crime. So close.
This week, episode 5, we are discussing ye old time crimes.
From the days of yore.
Well, because America is pretty young, mine just goes back to the 1860s, but I'm excited to hear what yours is. I'm sure yours is older.
Yeah, it's a little bit older, but people weren't great at keeping records, were they? Apart from people who died and were born. So
Unless you were royal.
Yeah, unless you were royal. Yeah, no one's saving anything, and you had to write on like fucking papyrus or whatever. So it's a bit sparse on the details, like compared to more modern stories. But I find like the earlier that they are in history, the less real it is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, mine, we're not sure if it's fact or fiction or a mixture of the two.
Ooh.
So we're going to go to the 1860s to a place called Wyoming. South Pass City in Wyoming was known as a rest point for thousands of travelers making their way to the west, whether for gold mining or for a new life. For UK listeners, Wyoming is in the middle of the US. It's beautiful. There's mountains, there's flat plains. Around this time, it wasn't a state yet. It was just a territory, and it was very much like the Wild Wild West.
Yeah, you would travel across in a fucking wagon, and like, yeah, it's like Louis C.K. has this joke about today people whinge about being on planes, but then you would travel across the country and then you'd die, and then someone would fuck your wife and just like bury you with like a hat on a stick. Like, it sounds absolutely hellish and not worth the effort.
Or an adventure, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're like strong and healthy and you're not going to die of dysentery, then go for it.
Right. This is the Wild Wild West. Why do I keep saying Wild Wild West? It was the Wild West.
It's that Will Smith song, which was a banger.
It is. Anything goes. There were settlers, ranchers, Native Americans, and gold prospectors. Also, fun fact, Wyoming is known as the Equality State, as it was the first to give women the right to vote.
Oh, good for Wyoming.
Yeah.
I'm sure they didn't give black women the chance to vote, though.
No. I'm not sure of the laws at that time, but I'm sure people of color did not have voting rights. Even Native Americans, I don't think that they did. I could be wrong on that.
The questionable past of America.
Polly Bartlett. She came to South Pass City with her family in 1868 from Cincinnati, Ohio. Polly and her father had a history of crime. Also, I'm not sure how old Polly was. I think she was probably around her 20s, maybe early 20s even. So Polly and her father had a history of crime. In Ohio, they ran a saloon where Polly and her father had a system set up. Polly would take the saloon customers upstairs for some fun, while her father would steal from their wallets.
1800s fun. Backgammon, was it?
Wink, wink. Nudge, nudge. Not much is known as to why they left Ohio, other than they just left. They left Ohio. I'm sure it's because they wronged the wrong people.
Yeah, were chased out of town.
They stopped off in Colorado and they tried their hand at prospecting for gold, but they pretty quickly realized how hard it was and they gave up and headed further west.
Okay.
Once they moved to South Pass, Polly, her brother, cousin, and father opened a lodging house just outside of town for the many travelers going west. It was the perfect time and place, a rowdy mining town, a busy stop for the new railroad passing through, and a popular rest stop for those on the Oregon Trail. Do you know what the Oregon Trail is?
No, what is it?
Every 90s American kid will know what the Oregon Trail is because there was a computer game in the 90s where it was called Oregon Trail.
Okay.
And you would start off in one place and you get on your wagon with your family. You could say how many family members you have. So it's like you, your wife.
Like The Sims. Okay.
Kind of, yeah. And you get on your wagon with your supplies, you say how much money you have, and if you're bringing special things, I think, and go on this trail, and you come across challenges like you have to go hunting, or your child is sick or dies from dysentery.
This sounds really fucking good.
It was great. I would play it today if I had it.
Yeah, I play it. Like, well, what console was it on?
Just the computer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a computer game.
God, you would never play a game on a computer these days, would you?
No, although I do have some friends who do. They're huge nerds.
I think, yeah, I mean, my boyfriend has like a Warhammer game that he plays on the computer, but I think he plays it with other people because they're obviously in France and one of them is in Turkey and stuff, so they need it to be on a computer, I guess. I mean, I don't know how this thing works, but...
We're losing all of our computer gamer listeners. Like, they don't know what they're talking about.
How dare you?
There's millions of us.
Yeah, I mean, I support fully your right to nerd up, so let's just put that out there.
We're all nerds in our own way.
So when you say Oregon Trail, you're basically saying a trail that leads to Oregon?
Yeah, through Oregon.
What was so good about Oregon?
It was on... I don't know. You're asking the wrong person. I don't want to, like, say the wrong thing, but
Did you not complete the game?
No, I did. I loved it. It was you would play it every day. It was like a new game every day because you'd always end up dying.
Yeah.
Or you'd reach the end and it would be like, you've reached the end, yay! And then that was it.
Start again. I mean, yeah. I would like to say that if the creators of this game are listening, and I fully doubt that you are, please send us a free version of this Oregon game.
It's probably an app by now.
Well, I'm going to look for it after this is done. Okay, so they're on the Oregon Trail.
So South Pass in Wyoming is on the Oregon Trail.
Okay.
This was the perfect cover for Polly and her family. It was not uncommon for people to go astray in 1860s Wyoming. Highwaymen would rob and kill for a silver dollar or a horse. Settlers and Native Americans and bandits would often clash. This was easy pickings for the Bartlett family. Nobody missed the missing.
No.
Polly and her family bought large quantities of arsenic under the guise of keeping the rodents away for the lodgers' comfort.
Okay.
Polly wasted no time after they set up their lodging, and their first victim was a young man named Lewis Nichols. Nichols was a rare lucky one who struck gold and was one of the few people in town that were heading back east. So he wasn't going west for a new life. He actually found gold, and he was going back east, back home.
I feel like you just wouldn't tell anyone. If you found gold, you'd just be like, right, I'm just going to shove this up my arse and then I will see you when I get to the boat. Like, I won't be telling anyone.
Unless he was an idiot and he was telling everyone because it was so rare to find a chunk of gold and he wanted to be in the papers or something.
Yeah.
Once at the Bartlett's lodge, he offered Polly $10 if she would make him a steak.
That's a lot of money back then, right?
It is a lot of money. Yeah, it's like $1,000 probably. I don't know.
Stop showing off.
Hey, make me a steak. Here's some money.
Yeah, okay.
So she made him a steak and she added some extra seasonings.
Nichols
went into convulsions that night and he died.
Yeah, I hear death by arsenic is fucking horrible.
Is it?
Well, that's what the all the people at Jonestown, the Jonestown massacre, I think that was arsenic that they drank in the Kool-Aid. And if people refused to drink it, then they just stabbed them with a needle and like injected them.
And people had guns too, didn't they?
Yeah, so like Jim Jones, he got somebody to shoot him in the head because he didn't want to drink the arsenic because it's such horrible death. Mm-hmm. It basically like starves all your cells of oxygen, I think, so you like suffocate.
Jeez.
Yeah, not a good way to go.
Even for animals. That's not nice for animals either.
Little rats.
Even though I hate rats.
Really? I think they're okay, I mean.
No, I have such a phobia for them.
Okay, duly noted.
Never show me a rat, Talissa.
Okay, well, that's your birthday present out the window.
Okay, so this kickstarted Polly to continue poisoning men, and her father helped her steal from them, and then they would just bury them in their lodgings field.
Mm-hmm.
So the Bartletts added more onto their lodge, building a barn with large haylofts and turning their large home into the Bartlett Inn. Their second victim was Tim Flaherty. Polly led him away for a walk, air quotes, in the woods, while the other lodgers ate their dinner and went to bed. When they returned from their walk, Polly cooked Flaherty a steak, and again, she slipped some arsenic in it. He was dead within half an hour.
So do you think she gave him a hand job and then...
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what the different sources stated, that she would take...
Well, like lull them into a false sense of security, basically.
Yeah. What is it? When you entice someone with your sex. What is the word?
Seduce?
Yes.
Oh, God, that was brilliant.
Why couldn't I think of that word? She would seduce men.
Okay. She would sex it up.
She would entice them with her sex.
That's what we're using from now on. Okay.
I'm going to go to the pub and entice someone for sex.
You're Rachel, you're just so lovely. Like you can't even think of the word. Very polite Minnesotan girl.
That's me. All right, back to the story.
Yeah.
When they returned from the walk, Polly cooked Flaherty a steak, and she again slipped some arsenic in it. He was dead within half an hour, and Polly and her father took his money and buried him without anyone knowing. Polly apparently had different techniques for enticing and poisoning men. She would either cook them a huge meal and sprinkle some arsenic on it, or she'd get them drunk, have sex with them, and then poison their drink.
And this is all just for like money and laughs.
Yeah, they were just bad people and got all their money from stealing from people.
Okay.
So one guy did get away. Edmund Ford was enticed by Polly's old seduce in the barn act. He followed her out there.
We've all been there.
We've all been there on both sides.
Yeah, seducing in the barn.
Follow me to the barn. He followed her out there where they were getting hot and heavy.
Ooh.
When Polly tried to offer him a whiskey, he didn't take it, and he told her he didn't drink. Then Polly's father turns up to what he thinks is going to be a dead body, because usually she would poison the drink and then they would die, and then the dad would come and take care of the body.
Mm-hmm.
Her dad turns up, and obviously Edmund isn't dead. He's alive, and tells Polly they should find somewhere more private. Polly gets frustrated and tells Edmund that he insulted her dad, so Edmund just gets the fuck out of there and rides to the next town.
He's like, I'm not going to fuck you in front of your dad. She's like, you're so rude.
Yeah. What's your dad doing here right now? He's just here. Stop being rude.
I think he thought it was going to turn into a weird, like, threesome situation.
Her dad's holding a shovel.
Yeah. I mean, most people would take that as their cue to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, your dad's here. I'm just going to get out.
Nice spade. See you later.
Edmund's brother, Sam, on the other hand, he wasn't as lucky. Sam was traveling through to discuss business with his brother and happened to stay at the Bartlett Inn. When Sam never showed up to meet Edmund, he just assumed he was ambushed and murdered on the road.
Well, I mean, easy assumption to make.
Yeah, those were the times.
Yeah.
Oh, my brother's 2 days late. He must be dead. Someone probably robbed him on the road.
You really would think that, wouldn't you? Like, when you text him, like...
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll run into you.
Have you seen my brother? He was riding a brown horse.
Yeah. He had on, like, cowboy boots, a hat.
Looks like me.
Old Sam.
One of the last known victims was Theodore Fountain, or Fortunes. There were different stories that had different names. I'm going to call him Theodore Fountain.
Okay.
Theodore, or Teddy, was a young man who was traveling Europe in the spring and summer of 1867. When he arrived back in the U.S. that summer, his plan was to travel west to see his family for a few weeks before going back to school, university.
Mm-hmm.
So he was kind of a rich kid. He was traveling around Europe.
On his gap year.
Yeah, like many of us do now.
Yeah. Or I found university too hard and had to leave. Yeah.
Yeah.
As I call it.
Either or.
Yeah.
His father, Barney, waited for 4 weeks at Union Pacific Station, 80 miles south of
God.
South Pass City, but Teddy never turned up, so he waited for 4 weeks.
That's devotion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fucking 20 minutes, someone doesn't show up, I'm gone.
My dad's not here, I'm out.
If it's that important, they'll write to me.
Right. So when he didn't turn up after 4 weeks, Barney hired detectives to find out what happened, and after a month, their search led them to the Bartlett Inn. Polly told them that Teddy had bought a horse at the train station and was going to ride up to surprise his parents. So he wasn't going to take the train, he was going to ride a horse and ride through the night.
Okay.
She told him it was a foolish idea because of the dangers on the road. Barney believed her, but still wanted to find the man or men on the road that killed his son. So her story wasn't enough. Her dad was like, okay, great, I'm still going to go find those men.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. The word got out of the missing Teddy, and it spread to none other than Edmund Ford. Remember that guy who doesn't drink?
Oh, yeah.
And who got away? He remembered his weird interaction with Polly and wondered if his brother and Teddy had had the same experience. Once he put 2 and 2 together, he told the sheriff, who headed to the Bartlett Inn to find Polly and her family had disappeared. Things were getting too hot for Polly and her dad.
She's out there. That's the thing. Never leave a victim alive because it just comes back to bite you in the ass.
Are you speaking from experience?
Like, if you're a serial killer, never have a diary, never leave anyone alive, and wear gloves. Those are my tips. Just to say, never murder anybody, carry on.
Don't have experience with it. I just know these things.
Yeah.
When they went back and she was gone, what they did find were 22 bodies buried in the cow field.
Oh, 22?
Yeah.
Phew, she's been busy.
Yeah. The sheriff posted a $13,000 reward on Polly and her father, and after a few days, who caught them? None other than Edmund Ford.
Fucking Edmund.
Who shot and killed Polly's father.
Oh, he was a dark horse.
Yeah. He doesn't drink. That's how you stay sharp back then. Just don't drink.
Keeps his mind sharp, yeah. Makes you a good shot.
He shot and killed Polly's father as they camped along the river not too far from South Pass. He captured Polly and brought her back to town for hanging. While she waited in jail, Barney Fountain had apparently put out a $10,000 reward for the Bartletts, dead or alive. So there's a $13,000 reward from the sheriff. And then there's a $10,000 reward from Barney Fountain, the lovely dad who wants to find his son's killers.
I feel like this would make a good film. There's some good, strong characters in here.
It probably is.
Yeah, probably.
I should have researched that before I did this story.
No, we're too busy.
Yeah.
We can Google it after, or someone else can Google it and email me.
Yeah.
Yeah, just email me. You know what to do.
By the way, my episode a few episodes ago, the couples murders, mine was the honeymoon killers.
Yeah.
I found out that there is a movie about them, and it's with Jared Leto and...
Salma Hayek?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Do you know what it's called?
Which I thought that was very generous to give those actors, because that is not how those people really looked.
Yeah, like, weren't you specifically saying people had written, like, she was fugly, like, she was awful?
Yeah.
You know, people don't want to watch ugly people on TV. And I definitely want to watch Salma Hayek on TV, so...
Yeah. So there's this $23,000 reward on Polly. As Polly sat in her cell on the night of October 7th, 1867, a man named Otto Kalkors put his sawed-off shotgun through the cell window and shot her point blank, killing her.
Ooh. Why? Just didn't like her?
Well, Kalkors was a foreman at one of the mines owned by Barney Fountain. So he heard about the reward, obviously, through Barney, and was like, I'm going to get that reward. And also, I love my boss, and I'm going to avenge his son.
What are you going to do? Fucking then saw it open and drag her corpse out of the prison? Like, surely she's already been caught.
Yeah, but I think Barney was so angry that he just said dead or alive. If you kill her, then you'll get some money for it. And from what I read, too, people just let it happen.
Yeah.
He rode up on his horse in the middle of the night, pointed his shotgun through the window and shot her, and then he rode away. People were angry at Polly, so they were just happy that she was taken care of.
Just sort of turned a blind eye.
Yeah. He was never tried for the murder. South Pass City is now somewhat of a ghost town and tourist destination, where you could still see some of the gold mines surrounding it, and apparently, I don't know if this is true, you could still visit the Bartlett Inn or the area.
Ooh, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Another place to pop on the road trip map.
Yes.
As
definitely.
well as the Winchester House.
Yes.
It's in California, right?
Yeah, you're right. It is.
Did you say it was Wisconsin, right, this place was?
Wyoming.
How far away is that from California? Like, shitload.
Maybe like 12 hours, depending on where you are. And
that's not bad.
Anyways, that is the story of Polly Bartlett. There's still considerable debate over the legitimacy of the story, but if true, Polly Bartlett would be the first and worst serial killer in the history of Wyoming.
Ooh, very good, Rach.
Thanks.
Loved it.
Yeah, that's kind of American Wild West.
Yeah.
For our theme this week.
I would be so shocked if that wasn't a film.
I'm going to look it up.
You definitely should do. Okay, so my story this week, but do you know what makes me laugh? Like, that would have been, if anyone cared or wanted to advertise with us, that would have been, have you got a Casper mattress? like that would have been where we would have stopped. Anyway.
Yeah, Squarespace. Simply safe.
ThreadUp, HelloFresh. We haven't got any of those sponsors. And if we do, we're going to have to cut that out. So my story this week, it's not based in England.
Okay.
Or Britain, but the guy he's Scottish and he moved to the place where it occurs. And there's lots of English people involved because there was an English colony there.
Okay.
Hopefully you'll let me get away with this one, even though it doesn't strictly adhere to the Transatlantic rules. But it's fucking hard to find an interesting murder that's super old. It has enough detail.
Honestly, though, I thought maybe you would have done Jack the Ripper, but there's so much info and...
Oh, bore off. There's loads of people that say he's basically fetishized.
Okay.
And his murder victims, they were all made out to be sex workers, and actually a lot of them weren't. There's a bit of debate about him at the moment, so maybe we could do him a bit later when they've tested some DNA or something. Oh, sorry, just a quick sidebar. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I listened to a really good podcast called All Killer No Filler, which I definitely recommend. And on there, they were talking about how boring they find Jack the Ripper as well. And they also said that there's been some developments where they've DNA tested a shawl, one of the shawls that one of the sex workers had. And they were like, oh, we found some DNA on there. And it's like, she was a Victorian sex worker. I'm sure that was riddled with all manner of DNA, that shawl. So I don't know if that's the most reliable testing you could be doing.
Definitely.
Some poor guy who just got his end away. It's just I didn't murder her.
Some farmer who was visiting the city and then...
Some fucking dentist or something was I was just having a good time. And now my whole family name has been marred.
I used to work with a woman in Ipswich when I lived in Ipswich in England.
Mm-hmm.
And she was convinced that she was related to Jack the Ripper.
Oh, you must get that. Well, for a start, no one knows who he is.
Right.
I'm sure you're related to someone that lived there at that point, but...
She had all this story about how her family was from London and one of the men went missing or they didn't know what happened to him and he wasn't a great guy. So she seemed like a reliable girl. Yeah, she was a older woman in her 50s. She was very straightforward. I really liked her. And she had done her family history, her family tree. And that's what she thought. So maybe someday they'll test that shawl's DNA and it'll match hers.
Well, here's hoping. Because if you're going to be saying that to people, I almost want you to be right.
Right, yeah.
Good for her, in a way. Okay, this is the story of Lewis Hutchinson.
Ooh.
And he was known as the Mad Master or the Mad Doctor of Edinburgh Castle. Now, I have to preface this with I got a lot of this from a lady called Dr. Rebecca Tortello. And I think she's done some sort of study on Jamaica. And this was one of the things that she was writing about. And obviously Murderpedia and Wikipedia.
Right.
Got a lot of time on this one. Can I also say I donated £2 to Wikipedia, which if you divide over the times I've used it, That's some good value for money.
It is. I think I give maybe $1 or $2 every year.
Yeah, I do feel guilty because I must visit Wikipedia like twice a week, I reckon.
When you go down those holes, you need it.
When I'm down that rabbit hole, I'm just grabbing onto the hole that is Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Lewis Hutchinson, he was born in Scotland in 1733, where he is believed to have studied medicine. The problem being that he's not a trustworthy man, so he could have been bullshitting about the fact that he was a doctor. But he told everyone that he was a doctor. And he came to Jamaica in the 1760s, so he was in his late 20s by that point, and he wanted to run an estate and breed cattle.
What was Jamaica like at that time, do you know?
I'm sure, well, it must have been like, India in the 1700s, where they basically came in, fucked all the natives over, built some nice houses, and were just like, we live here now.
Yeah.
So
kind of like a smaller version of America.
Yeah, basically. Just turn up, and we probably had like military posting there as well, just to keep everything in order, because there are a few military people involved in this. I think there's also like a lot of trade going on of fruits and vegetables and things like that, because there's a harbour as well. So he came to Jamaica in the 1760s. He was in his late 20s and he wanted to run an estate and breed cattle. So the estate that he was on, it was located in the Pedro district of St. Anne. So he owned the patch of land and there was a building on it known as Edinburgh Castle. So it was built in the early 1700s and it was a small square building with 2 stories and 2 circular loophole towers at opposing diagonal corners. So, like, I wouldn't say this is really a castle, but they just called it that. I'm sure it was, like, the nearest thing to one in Jamaica.
Yeah.
So, although he is said to have acquired the land legally, his medical credentials were under question, and his collection of cattle was said to consist mostly of strays from neighbouring pens. Yeah, so he just fucking stole them, basically. If they wandered onto his land, they were his.
What kind of man goes to another country, builds a house, and says he's going to start a cattle field and just steals the cow?
A fucking criminal one.
How do you even think of that?
Yeah, I guess the thing is, he seems like a really formidable character. Like, people were petrified of him.
Oh, okay.
So I think they just thought, fuck it, it's not worth it. He bred the cattle as well, so I'm sure, like, he stole some, and then they had calves, and then they were then his. Travellers would occasionally stop to rest at Edinburgh Castle because it was the only inhabited spot for miles on the way to St. Anne's Bay heading south. Not too long after Hutchinson's arrival, rumours started circulating that travellers were disappearing without a trace.
So that's kind of similar to my story where
it is, yeah.
It's a spot in the middle of a travel route.
Yeah, it seems like this was a convenient way to murder people back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot has to be said for CCTV. People don't like it, but this fucking shit would not happen.
And social media.
Exactly, and phones.
Yes.
Yeah, not too long after his arrival, travellers started disappearing. And then since the main road passed directly before his castle, there was no shortage of passers-by.
Okay.
Rumours of his activities and the number of people that vanished started to grow. As it later turned out, Hutchinson would open his castle to travellers and he'd offer them hospitality and rest before killing them with a rifle, an act which he later described as, air quotes, a thrill.
Whoa.
At the height of his villainy, he would invite guests into his castle and entertain them with dinner before killing them. So he seems like to just be mad with power.
It sounds like it was a game to him, that he would have dinner and then he would probably say something like, hey, let's go out. I want to show you this thing out here. Or let's play hide and seek.
Yeah.
And then he'd pull out his gun and they would get scared and he would find that entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, Jamaica at that point must have been quite boring. But so Hutchinson had slaves as well that worked for him, and they had loads of stories about their own mistreatment and about his reputation for evil doing, and that kind of fueled the fact that nobody wanted to go near him. And Hutchinson killed for sport and not money, because travellers of all shapes and sizes and income levels were equal game.
He wasn't like the Bartletts where he would kill them and steal their money. He was just doing it all for fun.
No, he didn't take their money.
Jeez.
Yeah, he'd just fucking kill them for a laugh. So he would simply see a passerby and just shoot them from his window. Or if the mood took him, then he'd invite them in for dinner. So he's literally just bored. Some of the townspeople gossiped that he fed off their blood and often dismembered his victims, and either him or his slaves left them in the hollow trunk of the cotton trees, or they would leave them out for the vultures to carry on where he left off, or they had a sinkhole on the property. And that hole became known as Hutchinson's Hole.
Wow.
Yeah, so his reputation was such that no one wanted to go anywhere near him. Even the people that could arrest him were too scared to confront him. As time continued to pass, rumours circulated and Hutchinson remained free. At one point, he had a neighbour, Dr. Hutton, and he passed by on his way back to England to visit his family. And Hutchinson attacked him so brutally that he had to wear a metal plate in his head for the rest of his life.
Whoa.
Again, no charges were pressed, and the townspeople remained too fearful to confront him.
He must have been known pretty well around Jamaica after a while, and everyone was probably saying, avoid this place at all costs.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
All ye who enter
Yeah.
will be damned. Anyway, so eventually they'd had enough of this shit. There was a British army officer, he was called John Callender, and he was like, right, I'm going to go and I'm going to bring him into the authorities for questioning over these rumours. So as he approached the castle, Hutchinson came out and calmly shot him on sight and killed him.
I don't like the look of this guy. He's dead.
He's just like, you look like you're coming to ruin my fun.
Yeah.
And this act was witnessed by several of the white settlers. Basically, Hutchinson at this point knew that this meant more soldiers would be on their way. So he decided to flee south to the old harbour and get a ship out of town. Unbeknownst to Hutchinson, the Royal Navy had caught wind of his latest murder and was keeping watch because they suspected that he was going to flee.
Yes.
Hutchinson's craft was intercepted. Increasingly desperate, this is really funny, Hutchinson tried to leap overboard, but his red hair made him easy to see and he wasn't able to get very far.
That's hilarious.
I just imagine him in one of those, like, stupid Scottish wigs that is literally just pure orange. Damn this red hair.
Probably a big beard and just red everywhere.
Yeah, like he does not like to be called Rusty. Yeah, so anyway, they call him. Admiral Rodney, who was the commander of the Royal Navy at that time, was congratulated by Jamaica's House of Assembly, his assistance in apprehending Hutchinson and placing him securely behind bars, so much so that they built a statue of him, and it stands in the Spanish town square in Jamaica.
Aw.
That's very cool. I quite like to see that.
Yeah.
They take him to trial. Legal proceedings against the Mad Master of Edinburgh Castle commenced, and soon unimaginable tales of debauchery began to surface. Edinburgh Castle was searched, and clothing said to have belonged to his victims, the travellers who had disappeared, was found. What's really annoying is, it says unimaginable tales of debauchery began to surface. I cannot find one example of what he did apart from he just invited them in and shot them, or he shot them out of the window.
Yeah, what's the debauchery? I want to hear about that.
No, I've looked everywhere. So if anyone can figure out what this fucking weirdo was up to, I'm up for hearing it.
Or use your own imagination.
Yeah. Well, you know that episode, there's an episode of, what is it called? American Horror Story.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's one, and it's about a lady that lives in, like, you know, that really southern state, Louisiana?
Mm-hmm.
And she's a slave owner, and she's, like, really horrible to all their slaves.
Yeah.
Like, more horrible than normal.
Yes.
More horrible than having slaves.
Right.
Like, needlessly hideous. Did you ever watch that series?
I was an extra in it.
Fuck off. When?
I was in the Lady Gaga season.
Were you? I didn't know
I
that.
didn't tell you that?
No. What did you do?
I was just an extra. I stood 3 feet away from Lady Gaga behind her.
Wow. What did she smell like?
There was no smell, so positive nor negative.
I mean, that's always good.
She has a ton of tattoos, and they were all covered up. And I thought that was...
Oh.
That must have been really hard because I have a tiny tattoo on my wrist,
Yeah.
and they had to cover it up for the scene. And it took about half an hour to cover it up.
Wow, yeah. I didn't realise she had so many tattoos, no.
Yeah.
What happens in that series?
She is a vampire.
Oh, cool.
And she lives in, it's the hotel series.
Oh, right, yeah.
But there's, the scene that I'm in is when it's back in the 1920s and she is playing, I think, an extra or an actress in a movie, and they're both she's talking to another actress, and they're watching the star of the film, and they're just like, oh, he's so handsome, blah, 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 blah. And I'm behind her while they're saying that.
That's like fucking Lady Gaga Inception. Like, you're an extra while she's playing an extra.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Sorry about that side note, but I haven't watched the Louisiana slave episode.
That's a real story. That's from like a real woman.
Is it?
Yeah. I thought it was quite good. I'm definitely going to try and spot you though. Can you see you? Definitely in it.
Yeah, I'm actually wearing a wig because I had short hair.
I'm so up for this. Okay, cool.
Why did you bring up American Horror Story anyway? You were thinking that is what he was probably like?
Yeah, so like some of the things that she does to the slaves in her like house, I was thinking like when you said use your imagination, like that was the only thing I could think of that was kind of similar. Because I'm sure if he was like just fucking shooting people randomly and stuff, I'm sure he was a bit of a wrong'un to his slaves as well. So yeah, that's just what I was thinking of basically.
Okay.
But yeah, they were finally free to break their silence over the things that they saw, but all of their testimony was just hearsay and it wasn't allowed into court. That's probably why we don't have much record of it. Hutchinson, who was believed to have committed countless murders, he could actually only be tried for the one murder of the English soldier John Calendar.
Okay.
So that was all he was on trial for.
All you need is one, though.
That's true. That's very true. You know, like people will say, oh, why do they have to give them like 6 death sentences or, 6 life sentences? Because if they get over one, then they still have another one to get over.
Right.
So, they can't like overturn their conviction on just one.
Yeah.
But I doubt there was an appeal process at this point in time. I think they just fucking were like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So during the trial, however, the stories of his slaves were substantiated, and it was further revealed that Hutchinson had not carried out his evil acts alone. The existence of a neighbouring group of culprits was also revealed. So there's some other people on the island that live next to him that are also killing people.
So that's how he got away with it for so long.
Yeah.
Because his pals were
in on it,
having fun as well.
Yeah, basically. So there's a planter, James Walker, and a guy called Roger Maddox. They were tried and they were found guilty and condemned to death for their own parts in the murder of 2 men, a farmer called William Lickley, and a schoolmaster called Timothy Cronin. So the fucking schoolmaster's just going missing as well. Like, this has gone too far.
Yeah.
It is said that along with Roger Maddox and Lewis Hutchinson, 3 local women, Maddox's wife, Susanna Cole, and Elizabeth Thomas, watched the schoolmaster, Timothy Cronin's death, and he was killed by
What?
Yeah, so they were just watching. And he was killed by strangulation when he was trapped in some stocks. So you know that thing where you put your head in and your arms are either side of you and It's locked? They strangled him to death in there. His wristwatch, was later found in Elizabeth Thomas's possession. So she was tried and she pled not guilty and she was found innocent.
What?
Yep, she got away with it. I mean, I don't know what her story was. It must have just been like, I was made to do it or whatever.
Yeah.
Damsel in distress. So Lewis Hutchinson, he entered a plea of not guilty despite several witnesses having seen the murder of John Calendar. And he was also defended by one of the island's best lawyers, I'm assuming because he had loads of money that he stole off people. He was tried and found guilty and condemned to death by hanging in the Spanish town square in 1773.
Yes.
This is quite funny. A narcissist, even in death, Hutchinson left money so that his tombstone could be inscribed with these words: "Their sentence, pride and malice I defy, despise their power and like a Roman die."
So he's comparing himself to the Romans.
Yeah, he's basically saying their sentence I defy and their malice I defy.
Yeah.
His wishes for the inscription were ignored. Yeah, as if. So yeah, they were just like, no, just chuck that corpse in the hole and let's all go get
in his own hole.
Let's go, chuck it in Hutchinson's hole and let's go get a mead. Or like a cut open coconut, I'm assuming, if you're in Jamaica. It's really funny that you mentioned a game, because in Assassin's Creed 3, which I haven't played, but the Assassin's Creed games, they do look really good.
Yeah.
Fictional protagonist Connor Kenway visits Hutchinson's abandoned Edinburgh Castle in Jamaica in 1776.
Wow.
3 years after Hutchinson was hanged. In the game, you're in search of Joseph Palmer's piece of Captain Kidd's treasure map, which was implied to have ended up in Hutchinson's private museum.
He had a private museum?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
Well, I guess he just had loads of shit from like everybody that went through there. I don't know if that's real or not. It is just in the game, but it is based on history roughly. So today, the ruins of Edinburgh Castle still stand silently, betraying no hints of the acts of evil that took place centuries ago.
It's still there?
Yeah.
Wow.
Although the final toll is unknown, upon searching his home after his arrest, approximately 43 watches and a large amount of clothes were found. The records of his trial stand in the National Archives and in the Jamaican Archives as him having 43 plus victims.
Wow.
Yeah, and that is the tale of Lewis Hutchinson, the Mad Master.
That's a good one. I've never heard of him.
No, I've never heard of him. It's just annoying, isn't it? Because, again, like with your one, you don't know if it's true or not. You don't know if it's just sort of like lost to the ages as to whether it actually happened.
Or something that was a seed of a truth that just grew.
Yeah, exactly. Although this is in the National Archives, so I guess you could, if you were so inclined, you could actually go there. But it's really funny. Like my friend Ada is an illustrator, and she illustrates if a company has a big meeting about what are we going to do about mental health or what are we going to do about this, like she will go there and she'll illustrate everything that they've said and make it into like a poster or whatever so that they can put it around. And she said that she went to the National Archives and she was like, it's just the most fucking boring looking building on like an estate that you've ever seen. And I was like, I bet they make it look so boring so nobody turns up going, excuse me, can you dig out this bit of paper from 1753? Absolutely not. No.
Carol doesn't want to do her job.
No, this is a button factory. There's no records here. Like, sounds like a very interesting place to work, though.
Yeah.
I love all that shit.
Definitely. All right, that was a great story. That was a good both stories. Sort of true, maybe true.
Who knows?
And interesting that they both there's a version of a game connected to them.
Yeah, definitely.
That's funny.
I'll have to put it out there and see if anyone's played Assassin's Creed 3 and then I can bore them with this story. You know, I have a podcast episode devoted to that. You should definitely give it a listen.
Back to the gamers. They're all like, yeah, we knew about this already.
It's come full circle. Okay, well, thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Transatlantic Crime this week. If you liked what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe.
And if you'd like to follow us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at TransatCrimePod, Instagram at Transatlantic Crime, and on Facebook with Transatlantic Crime Podcast.
Thanks, bye.